Hey guys, what's going on? This is JBird. For those of you who don't know, I've been producing professionally for about a decade or so. And one of the first, if not the first major release album, independently major release album that I put out as a producer was The Gentleman Approach by Jeff Burnett. So when we got done with that album, I remember Jeff, he used to say, man, we're going to take this album to Korea. We're going to take this album to China, to Japan, to Asia. Just basically saying we're going to take this album to Asia, the Philippines, And it was cool because everybody was anticipating for his debut album to come out. And, I was just happy to contribute. I had stayed at my parents for the summer. And that following fall, I decided to go back to Reno for a few more months to stay with Jeff and his family. And during that time, we worked on that album. And so the following year after that, the album gets a distribution deal, just a little distribution deal in Japan. Literally physical copies being sold at the Tower Records in Shibuya, Tokyo. And then eventually the album gets distribution in Korea, maybe about a month or so after that. And it's in the music stores in Korea. And then maybe about a couple months after that, there happens to be the show that picks up the song and places it on one of the episodes. And the show was called The Romantic and Idol, right? And one of the members was this K-pop star named June K, who's from the K-pop group 2PM. That song got really popular because of that episode with June K playing it and then also tweeting it on his Twitter page and him DJing it and covering it a few times. And so that's when the buzz about Jeff Burnett started to sort of erupt. And maybe during the wintertime after that whole thing happened, I get a call from Jeff saying that he's got an opportunity to perform his first show out there for one of the jazz festivals, namely the Seoul Jazz Festival, Seoul as in Seoul, Korea Jazz Festival. And I was like, man, super excited. I had to get my passport and stuff because I never traveled outside of the States. So, and then I get another call maybe a month after that. I'm in San Diego working on Michael Carry-On's album with Jesse Barrera. And then Jeff calls me and says he has his own solo show, actually, like his own headlining show in Korea, maybe a couple of months before that initial Seoul festival that was booked, the Jazz Festival. That was actually the first time that I went to Korea, was for Jeff's first show. So I produced the album, but then I also did live performances with him too, playing keys and singing backup. So that first trip was amazing. I remember when we landed, it was 12 hours of traveling. The jet lag I was feeling the jet lag, but I was just super excited at the same time. And we stayed at the hotel. It was Jeff, myself, and our boy Miko. The three of us, we traveled over there. And I remember the first show that we did was during that trip. And everybody knew the words to the songs. And it was just really, really amazing just being able to get that green room treatment. And this guy is low-key getting famous out there because of this album and this hit song that honestly wasn't our favorite song to begin with. This was Call You Mine, which, we put it on the album because it was definitely one of those songs that we felt should go on the album, but it wasn't our favorite. We thought that the hit was going to be a song like Just Vibe or Doesn't Matter or something like that, one of those tracks, okay? That was our first trip, but then the next time we came through was the Seoul Jazz Festival, and that was an amazing experience because we got to perform for an even bigger crowd because that first show actually sold out in 15 minutes, ticket sales, and it was about a 700-800 person venue. It was the V Hall in Hongdae. And then after that, we were in the Jazz Festival and we did 2 shows there, and it was like 2,000 people watching us. It was crazy. And then we went there again months after that for another show. And this time we got to bring a band. And then once again, we got to go, I want to say, well, I didn't get to go until maybe months after that. But in between my 3rd and 4th trip was the first time that I met I met Dean. You guys know Dean as really famous R&B singer from Korea. But at the time, Dean was actually getting his career as an artist started. At the time, he was just a songwriter, and he was writing many songs, and he's a really good songwriter. So I remember Jeff did get contacted, and they initially asked him to come down to Los Angeles because Dean was in Los Angeles visiting for about a month from Korea, and Jeff asked Dean's label at the time if he could bring his producer, and I said, let's do it, man. I'm sure we could cook up something. The first song that I created from scratch with those guys at the studio, it was just me and a keyboard, and everybody was just kind of doing their thing and waiting, while I was in the studio cooking up this beat, this instrumental, and then that instrumental ends up being What to Do, which features Crush and Jeff. So Jeff initially wrote the hook, the melody to the hook, and the melody to the pre-hook. And then Dean, he wrote everything else. And then later on, Crush got featured on it. That song came out maybe a year and a half after we had worked on it for Dean's debut EP. My first real successful song featuring a Korean artist, and actually two of them, because mentioning Crush, I started working with Crush not long after that, because Dean and Crush were pretty much part of the same crew. They were part of the Club Eskimo crew, and it only made sense because I felt like at that time, those were the guys that were coming up. And Crush, he already knew who we were because he had also covered Call You Mine and put it on his SoundCloud, and that was really successful, which was I found to be really mind-blowing, because a lot of people were getting influenced by the music that Jeff and I had put out, and the fact that it was reaching Korea and going off the way it did in terms of the buzz and popularity, it was just a super grateful experience, just knowing that even major record labels were getting their K-pop groups to try and make songs like the songs that we were making. And I felt like it was really awesome because eventually, I got to work with Crush, but I got to work with a few K-pop artists, and one of them was Lehigh, and we did a song called No Way. The thing is just being able to go out there and kind of experience a whole different world with a whole different set of people with different mannerisms. One thing that I like about Korea as a musician is that they do like a lot of different kinds of music. They're not necessarily stuck on one kind of music. They have their staple K-pop, and they love ballads, and they love all the kind of I don't want to say popcorn, but just like real bubblegum puppy love type songs, which is cool. That's great. And I'm able to produce that kind of stuff too. So I come from a jazz background, and they really loved the jazz element that I put in my production working on Jeff's songs. So I really appreciated the reception. And the cool thing is that I feel like my experience is pretty unique, because I feel like with other producers, because at the time I didn't really know how phenomenal the K-pop scene was. It was just this phenomenon that nobody really knew about, but the ones who did know were super crazy about it. And at the time, I'm sure there were musicians, there were producers trying to get in that market, but I was one of the ones that didn't know about it. And because I didn't know about it, I really wasn't trying to get into the market. I remember seeing one documentary with my family. We watched this documentary called I Am. And I think it was about the SM Entertainment artist on that label going on tour all over the world and stuff. So that was like really my first taste in what K-pop was. But I didn't really immerse myself in the K-pop world as much as I did with more so the R&B artists out there. Like Dean, he's not considered K-pop. Crush is not considered K-pop. They're considered, R&B, and they have a jazzy influence, really R&B crooning. Were inspired by Jeff and myself to do their style, and they've evolved since then. So props to those guys, and props to Lehigh, who I also had the chance to work with. And props to June K and Nick Kuhn from 2 p.m. because those are the guys that really kind of got it started for us in terms of these icons spreading our music. It was just like water flowing straight out of the sink and, making this huge puddle of wonderful experiences. And, we were splashing. And let me tell you, it's been great for me because I've been able to travel out there with Jeff, but then I've also been able to travel on my own and do different sessions out there. And that's how I've been able to produce a lot of the songs with, the artists that I've worked with. It's not really the easiest thing to try to work with huge, popular Korean, huge and successful Korean labels. You really have to know somebody. But what I'm looking to do is, I'm going to keep making music and I'm going to keep composing and producing for as many artists as I can. I like submitting songs too. And I like submitting songs. I like submitting demos. Not only do you have to be good, but you also have to know somebody. So if you were to take advantage of social media like YouTube or SoundCloud, display your music there and follow the guidelines of social networking and being able to reach out to people, I think you'll be in pretty good hands. So, and you just got to keep a positive vibe. You really got to keep a positive energy and stay on the affirmative. Know that if this is what you really want to do, you gotta have your focus towards that, because the journey is not easy, but it is well worth it if you really love whatever it is that you're doing on that journey. So anyways, that's pretty much it. And if you have any questions or any comments, you can always drop them below this video in the comments section. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. I am doing my best to stay consistent on this thing called social media, and that includes YouTube, that includes Instagram, that includes Twitch, that includes Twitter, that includes even Facebook, even though I don't really like Facebook that much. That includes my website, okay? That includes my Bandcamp. Be sure to provide your feedback, and we can definitely have a conversation, all right? You guys take care.